Welcome back into the studio for the Mixed Media Deck Build. To learn more about the deck build, please click on the description box below.
Talking bullshit. It's hard to see you when your eyes look dull. Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not blue? Not blue. Blue too. Bad blue. Sort of witty and jaded, but let's not talk about you. Your couch.
So I am going to get started on this card by first changing things up a little bit. I'm going to first pull out things that will fit for my prompts. So the first thing I'm going to pull out is some pattern paper because it would fit the pattern part, but it's also awesome for creating layers of collage texture. I also have pulled out alcohol sprays, and I will put a link up in the upper right hand corner of how I make those. A Distress Oxide ink pad in faded jeans, as well as an archival distress ink pad in faded jeans. I don't know if I'm going to use those, but I've pulled those out, as well as some of course, my favorite threads. And that is where I'm going to get started. So in true Nina fashion, I am going to pull out my matte gel medium and get some collage put down onto the front of this card.
Blue dew. Blue moon. Been 1 or 2 since I ran into you. Do you need a picture? Well, that gets old. It's hard to take one when your iPhone's full.
Now I did choose some papers here that are white, but they are very different from each other. So this is a little piece of watercolor paper that I love how it absorbs different mediums differently than other types of paper. I believe there's also, it's like a side of an envelope that had some texture in it when they like smashed it together, and it has this really subtle texture that just holds on to color. Knowing I was using those alcohol sprays, that's why I chose some of these papers, because I knew they would all react real differently from each other.
Blue dew. Blue moon. Kinda mysterious, shaded with someone I'm not really into. Do you need to fix it? Talking bullshit. It's hard to see you when your eyes look dull. Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not blue? Not blue. Blue dew. Bad blue. Sort of witty and jaded, but let's not talk about you. Your couch is on a rerun. Are you hound dog tired, singing all night long? Who's gonna save you?
Another real cool thing about this pattern paper is that it has lots of different lines and markings on it. So as you layer it up, it becomes a pattern unto itself, which of course fits in perfectly with our pattern prompt for this week. Also, I do have listed below, as always, any of the products I've used throughout this video, and I do have a grab bag of vintage sewing pattern pieces that's available in my shop.
I ran into you. Do you need a picture? Well, like it's old. It's hard to take one when your iPhone's full. Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not blue?
All right, so on to the alcohol spray. This is made out of a Ranger denim alcohol ink, and like I said earlier, the video, I will list it down below so you can see how I made these. But these are some of my favorite sprays to use, and they're permanent. They stay, they don't move on you afterwards. Excuse me. And they have all the beautiful things about alcohol inks that you love just in a spray. And so if you are sensitive to the smells of the alcohol inks, it'll be the same for the alcohol sprays, so it might not be the option for you. So I did pull out an extra piece of that watercolor paper to just take some of this color in case I wanted it to, in case I wanted to use it later on as an additional layer or part of the focal point. Sometimes I will do that. I like to dry between different layers or different color layers, and you'll see here I'm building up the same color in multiple layers and drying in between. All right, I am going to come in with a stamp that I've hand carved per our prompt. We need to use a hand carved stamp, and some Distress Oxide ink in the faded jeans as I had pulled out earlier. And I'm going to stamp this randomly on to the surface of my card, creating additional pattern and visual texture. And then I'm gonna stamp it again using the archival ink in the same color. It has been my experience that archival ink will still move if you use alcohol on top of it. So you're gonna see I'm gonna do a little tester of that, and sure enough, it doesn't move quickly, but it does eventually move. So I'm gonna then come in with a water brush and move some of that Distress Oxide ink. I like to bleed it out a little bit, get it to move, become more like that water color movement that you really get with those alcohol ink sprays. It kind of becomes watery and moves really beautifully. And now I do the long grind of trying to find a word or words to put on the front of this card. It's always a process, and I usually pull this type of footage out because it's so long, but I do end up finding a word, and you'll notice I'm ripping the edge off because I did not want the white edge. So if you pull away from you, you will not get a white edge. If you pull towards you, you will get a white edge on the edge of papers, as long as it's white centered paper. So the core of the paper is white, that is. Anyways, so I get that out, and I do end up using that watercolor paper that I had sprayed on the side to bulk that up to add to it for this focal point. And you know, I've got to add some threads because it's delicious.
Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not blue? Not blue. Been one or two since I ran into you. Do you need a picture? Well, that gets old. It's hard to take one when your iPhone's full. Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not blue? Not blue. Not blue.
And I'm going to finish this card off with using some of the archival distress ink in the faded jeans around the edge of the card.
Blue moon, kinda mysterious, shaded with someone I'm not really into. Do you need to fix it? Talking bullshit. It's hard to see you when your eyes look dull. Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not blue? Not blue. Blue too.